Hey guys, Luke here, and I know a lot of stuff happens in this chapter. I'm going to get into it as soon as possible, but I just want to say I am on fire. I mean, we're back doing the reviews, and also, I know I did say that I would put the volumes up here, but I've decided that, yeah, looking at it, it's a bit too much. It's a bit too much work for me, so I can't, so to be honest, I can't bother that I'm being too lazy here, but I do have the volumes right here to prove them. Yep, you can see right here. Promised Neverland Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, and Volume 5. So that proves that I am buying them and I'm not being this evil person saying, oh, he's just reading the chapters online, he's not buying the volumes. No, that's the proof. So, Sharita, there's your proof that we're not all evil, corrupt people that are just trying to make money off your series, and we're actually trying to give something back by actually buying your volumes. So, there you go. Is that the proof you need? So yeah, that's enough for my ranting on that subject. But anyway, I'm still gonna not show the panels because still under that impression of I'm gonna get flagged and taken down for copyright. But still, I'm on fire. Really loving the series back, and I hope we can do this for years to come. So let's just check it out. Wait a minute, guys. It says here that the series is on the final arc. What the fuck? Alright guys, before we get into the chapter proper, I just want to lay down my own opinion on this, and I've been talking about this with people on the Discord, on the Promised Neverland Discord. But personally, just because it's the final arc does not mean the series is going to be ending like in the next month or even possibly in the next year. I feel like we have got a few more years to go on, because let's calculate some of the stuff that we need to get, that we need to establish, that we need to get sorted. Okay, so we need to rescue Norman. That's one of the big ones. We need to find out exactly where the demons actually came from. We need to get the kids into human world and find out what's going on in there. And we need to actually take the demons down and eventually confront Peter and Grandma and the Demon King and create a new promise. So there's a lot of stuff there that we could potentially be going on for about another 4 or 5 years that I could potentially see. And it has stated in the interviews through the creators that they hope for the series to be, they don't want the series to be overly long like One Piece or Naruto or Bleach, but they want it to be, they just want it to be like around 20 to 30 volumes. So we're on volume 11 now, like in Japan, volume 11's out. So we've got, I'd say, we've got 19 more volumes if we're going with 30 volumes. So that's like, and we get like nine chapters in each volume. So that's a good like 180, 200 chapters. So we might be ending at possibly chapter 300, which I'm fine with it. If they're going at the way they are right now, I feel like we can get everything sorted and it can be all resolved and everybody's happy and it's not an overly long series. But that's just my opinion on that. And a lot of people have been complaining about issues with the pacing of certain chapters recently. And yeah, I can see that. I mean, I love this series. It's my favourite series, and nothing's going to change that unless something else comes along. But I will admit that the pacing sometimes can be a little bit over the place. But that's only in context with the story, because we have the creator who's trying not to rush things that are important, but if things are not important, he's going to rush them, because there's no point in dwelling on them, unlike other series who will just dwell on everything and it will just slow the pacing down to a point. I'm looking at you, One Piece. I'm not saying One Piece is a bad series, but the pacing at times in that series can be so slow and so many things that are just really irrelevant to the story that it's like, do we really need to be focusing on this? Like the fight with Luffy versus Kakarot. I mean, I love that fight, but I think you could have toned down a few chapters and it would have been alright for that. But anyway, that's just my opinion. And let's just get right into the chapter. Oh, and something else I forgot to mention is why this review is taking so much longer than it's necessary, because normally I do the review, it comes out on Mondays now, but we'll do the filming on Mondays and hopefully get out by Tuesday or Wednesday. But the thing is, with this review, it came about because of circumstances around my control, because basically I had family over from Australia who I hadn't seen in like 4 years, and for not even 4 years, 6 years. So I kind of wanted to spend time with them on Monday when I would have actually done the review, and everybody else did. So I didn't have time on Monday, and then on Tuesday and Wednesday I had work. So that got in the way. So today I've got the day off, so I'm doing the review now. So I hope you guys understand that I wanted to get this done on Monday, but that came about, and I really wanted to see them. So that kind of had to take priority over this review. I mean, I still love doing these reviews, still love talking about the series, but sometimes things have to take a priority over other things, and this was one of those incidences. So I hope that explains it, and we can now officially get into the chapter. Alright, so this will be chapter 102, titled We Found It. Oh great, yeah, they found it. They found a way to get into Human World. I hope they really enjoy going and seeing over there and seeing what the kind of world is. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's possibly a reference to finding a way to contact the Demon King, like as we saw in the last chapter. We saw Emma getting that vision of the Demon King and finding out like what exactly needs to be done, what sort of methods need to be established to get in contact with them physically rather than spiritually. And I feel like that's the reference to the title of the chapter that we're going with here. But anyway, because this is the 2-year anniversary of the Promised Neverland. Wow, 2 years already. That time sure does fly. I mean, I moved twice, moved back home, and this series has just come a very long way. It's gone from being a complete shocker to becoming one of the mass amount, like the high standards in Shonen Jump series that need to be established from this point on, along with Dr. Stone. Like that, those two series are the series that I feel like have just like peaked in terms of like next stage of development for Shonen Jump mangas, and I have decided that once this series concludes, if Dr. Stone is still going on, that's going to be the series that I'm going to be jumping on and reviewing afterwards, along with We Never Learn. I'm going to be reviewing both those series, and I'm not just going to be the one doing it. There's going to be a certain someone that's going to be helping me out when he decides to make his return one day. Anybody who's an old retro person who watched my old Promised Neverland reviews will know who I'm talking about. But anyway, the cover is very interesting because we see that it's Emma, Ray, Dawn and Gilda, which makes sense because out of the whole cast that we have seen, these four are like the main cast of characters. Like you know how you have certain series and you have like a large group of characters, but you also have that core central cast that is like there from beginning to end, like with Bleach, One Piece, Naruto, My Hero Academia especially, because even though you have the 20 students of Class 1A, you have the 5 or 6 who are like the most central, the ones that we focus on the most. Those are Deku, obviously, Bakugo, Uraraka, Ida, Todoroki and Tsuyu. Like they're the 6 that are like the ones that are mainly focused on throughout the series, and I feel like this is no exception. Like you have Ray, Emma, Norman, Dawn and Gilda, like they're the 5 that when you think of who the main characters of this series are, like those are the 5 that are the main ones that we think of. And I feel like Dawn and Gilda, since this is the last arc, I expect them to be on the chopping block to die, because one of the things that we need to see is Emma losing her shit, because this has been built up throughout the series. Like Emma is this pure protagonist, and one of the tropes that are with pure characters is that they can easily flip extremes. Like I've always compared Emma to like how the situation with Digimon Tamers I'm losing the will to pronounce his name. But yeah, the main character in Digimon Tamers, how he was a pure protagonist, and how when Leomon died, and that's not a spoiler because Leomon always dies, he's the Sean Bean. If there's ever going to be a live action Digimon movie, Leomon is going to be played by Sean Bean. I can guarantee that because he always dies. But anyway, when Leomon died in that series, like Takaro, the character that begins with T, I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry guys, I'm losing a blank here, but yeah, he just lost his shit, as with Guilmon, and they just went rage mode. And I feel like if certain characters, particularly main ones, are going to die, Emma is going to lose her shit and she's going to go into a rage mode, and that's been built up through certain powers that we see in Emma and sort of facial expressions. That is being built up, like she is going to fall, and she is going to fall hard. But anyway, to commemorate the celebration of the 2-year anniversary, there was a popularity poll, and we see in one of the panel, we see in the next page of the chapter, because these are still technically part of the chapter because they were made to be part of it, even though they're sort of like a alternative, like breaking the fourth wall universe, but I'm still considering them part of the chapter. But anyway, we see that the demons are gathered around their standard table waiting for the results of the popularity poll, and we see Lewis and we see him saying, "You lot are better voted for me for the sake of your kind." And yeah, Lewis, I'm sure we have voted for you. I'm sure you're going to be one of the most popular characters in the series. I mean, I love you, but I feel like some other people might not find you as fascinating as me. But anyway, I love you. And guys, people are better voted for Lewis, otherwise we might get him crossing over into the real world or something. Nah, I'm just kidding. He's a fictional character, but we can only dream. I personally would like to have a conversation with Lewis and find out what his whole deal is. That would be pretty interesting to just sit down with him. No holds back. But he's not allowed to eat anybody, and we're allowed to ask whatever questions we have. I feel like if we just had a talk with him, I feel like we would get like a really good insight into where he's come from, what his backstory is, and what's actually driven him throughout the series. I mean, we know what's driven him, like to find that perfect hunt, but why it's sort of like been the main driving force behind his character. But anyway, I just love Lewis and I just wanted to talk about him some more. But anyway, guys, getting into the popularity poll. Okay, on the page we see that we've got Violet at number 20, which I'm a little bit disappointed about, because Violet has done a lot more than some of the other characters like that are actually on this poll. So I feel like she should have been a little bit more higher. But the main one that stood out for me, in terms of like, really, he's that low, is Dawn at 19, and I feel like, really, Dawn has done way more than let me see. Anna is at number 5. Okay. I mean, Anna's alright. I mean, she's not one of my favourite characters, but she's alright. She's harmless, but really, number 5, guys, tell me, what has Anna actually done? Like, seriously, what has she actually done? Like, if you look at Don, he got that key to find out what was in Mama's private camera, and he's confronted Norman, Ray, and Emma about being kept in the dark. He's done a lot more. He's done not as much as the main 3, which are obviously Ray, Emma's number 1, Norman's number 2, and Ray's number 3, which I feel like Ray should have been number 2, because he's more of the protagonist of this series, behind Emma, because he's done a lot more than Norman. But seriously, Dawn at number 19, below Anna? That is just disrespectful. And I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, that's one of the things that I find really confusing. It's like you'll pick characters that are like have interesting designs and have really cute designs, but when you sit back and think about it, what have they actually done? If people actually sat back and actually thought about what they've actually done in the series, I think Don would have actually ranked a lot more higher than the spot he is right now. Same thing with Gilda as well. But anyway, one thing that I actually find really funny is that the bunny, you know, the bunny that Connie has, is at number 13. Yeah, the bunny ranked out Connie herself. Connie is at number 17. I just find that absolutely hilarious that a stuffed rabbit that's not even an actual character ranks higher than Dawn and Connie and Gilda and Gillian and Violet. I just find it absolutely hilarious that a stuffed rabbit that's not actually, that can't actually do anything, was actually one in the 20 most popular characters of the series. I just find that hilarious. Just really hilarious. But anyway, another thing that I find really fascinating is that Connie's number 17 and Lewis is number 16, which again is it's not really a position I would have put Lewis. I would have put him easily in the top 10 of characters in this series, just for his intelligence and just how much of a challenge he was to take down in the end. But anyway, we see the image here of Connie sitting in Lewis's lap with, oh my god, that's just so much symbolism. I cannot comprehend that Connie was on the lap of a demon that just reminds us of her fate over and over and over again. Oh my god. I mean, guys, I'm not going to go into too much detail anymore about this popularity poll, because I feel it's a little bit unbalanced. The main three I have very few problems with. I feel like Ray should have gotten a lot more votes. Emma, obviously, because she's the main character and she's doing a lot of stuff, and I feel like she's one of the more unique protagonists, which I feel like why she ranks so high, because she's just such a likeable character, but also strong-willed as well. I feel like that's what people just latched to her. But anyway, I'm not going to talk too much more about this popularity poll because we really need to get into the chapter right now. Okay, so the chapter starts off officially in a marketplace where we see fruit and veg being hung up by string, kind of like what we get in a regular marketplace, and we see two voices discussing the destruction of the Bion domain and the two plantations, which is obviously referring to the Goldie Pond incident. And it's really interesting how people are starting to hear the news, or I should really say, people in quotations, but they're starting to hear the news about what's been going on about Bion and his domain and how it's fallen and everything. And it's pretty interesting that news is starting to spread at this rate, which could lead into some sinister things as we go further down the line. So anyway, we cut down to more of the bottom page to see that it's actually two demon kids that are actually talking about this raid on Bayon's domain and how it's actually affecting produce in the demon world, and how high grade meat is in demand, and why anybody would raid cheap stuff, which is just interesting to see these demons talking like actual people. Like, it's interesting that they've done this world building and we're in this demon village place, and they're just treating it like an everyday occurrence, like oh, there's a high demand for human meat, or why people raid cheap stuff. It's kind of like how we view the demons view human meat in the same way we view animal meats, like they treat them as animals, and it's really interesting how they're just living out their normal life. They're not actually doing anything to go after humans at this rate, even though they would like to hunt humans. They're not actually going after humans, and it's interesting to see like just these children just talking like regular people and just living out their normal lives. It's kind of like how in Avatar: The Last Airbender, how we had the Fire Nation and how that was built up to be an evil like doctrine society, and it still was to an extent, but then you had people who were just living out normal lives, not really doing anything to affect other nations. They were just living out their lives in peace, and they were living like essentially normal people, like they weren't all evil soldiers. And it's the same thing here, like not all the demons are going out hunting the kids one after another, and it's certainly showing that there are demons that have their normal lives. As one of the young demons discusses about how it's affected the House of Bion, which again is very interesting how they've called it the House of Bion and not just like the demon overlord Bion or something like that. It's like just giving him a title of demon. How they've just treated Bion as just like an everyday citizen, like how we would say something like, oh, I wonder how this has affected the House of Simpson or the House of Thompson, something like that to that extent. Which again adds to my theory that the demons might actually be an evolution of the humans, or some sort of mutation of the humans, because they're not treating them as like, the demons are not treating each other as actual demons and not calling themselves demons. They're actually acting like a real society, and this just adds to more to the world building that I've really loved about this series. How we've had mysteries, and now we're just starting to unravel the mysteries. Like, not all demons are out in a sense to get the humans. I mean, they would want to, but they're not out to get them, and they just want to live their normal lives. And the kids mentioned that it's been over a year since the house disappeared, and we get the caption at the bottom of the next page which says September 2047, 1 year and 7 months after the collapse of Goldie Pond. Okay, so we've got on a time skip, and this is what I think people have been worried about when it's becoming like the final arc, and they feel like it's being rushed. But again, like I said at the beginning of this video, I feel like it's being rushed to the point where we need to get to the points that actually matter rather than dwelling on other things, and we'll get more into this as we go through the chapter. So anyway, let's talk about these kids' designs, these demon kids' designs. Okay, so we have one who's the old one, who has sort of like roughed up hair, and they have a mask that has like two arrows pointing on either side. And then we have the younger one who's like more jolly and more happy, but they have the horns growing out of their masks, and they have really unique designs that make them stick out. And the hair is giving me like like eerie vibe that they could actually be related to humans, because their hair looks like more like human hair rather than an actual detest deformed demon like style, like hairstyle that I feel like these demons would normally have. But anyway, that's just my opinion on the whole matter. But anyway, let's get into the main meat of this chapter. So anyway, as the kids are going along the marketplace, and we see human remains like put up as like meat and like ribs that we can actually see. That's kind of like really even for me, but then again, that's just the way this world works. We're meat to these demons, so they're gonna have decapitated bones and heads and ribs all over the place, and it's not gonna bother them. Just like how we would have like slabs of meat in a factory, just like propped up on a hook, and it wouldn't bother us. Well, it would bother some people like vegans and vegetarians, but to a lot of people, seeing a slab of meat in a factory on a hook is not a big deal. In the same way, like seeing a decapitated arm in a jar is not a big deal for these demons. But anyway, they go on to say perhaps his disappearance is also their doing, obviously referring to the kids that escaped from Goldie Pond, like Emma's group and Lucas and Hugo. But I think the older kids just dismisses that completely, and they go on to say that they would very much like to try some good stuff, even if it's just once, premium good, which just shows how valuable this meat is, and that's been established throughout the series. Like, the higher intelligence you are as a human, the more your meat is worth, and it's sort of like in the sense like how several meat products are established in the real world. Like, the more higher in quality the meat is, the more expensive it's going to be. And I feel like that's what this kid is referring to. Like, it wants to try out some human meats, like some really good human meat, but I feel like it can't afford it as much, which is another interesting fact about this world, how it's just built into how they're just living their normal lives. And as the clerk that they go up to a stand and they say, "Can we have some meat, please?" And the clerk gives them some meat. He says like, have you heard anything about the Gracefield House kids? It's been nearly 2 years since they escaped, and one of the kids just dismisses that like they're probably all dead at this point, which we know that's not the case, because as we'll see as we go through this chapter, things have really escalated in the shelter, in the B06 shelter, that it's really become a society in of itself. So anyway, coming back to the shelter, we see that Paula is actually looking at some monitors which have been set up so that they can actually monitor the activities of outside and see if it's actually safe for them to actually go out and do a hunt of the area to find out clues about how to get into the Demon King's domain. And we see Paula as she's grown up quite a bit. I mean, she's grown her hair out quite a little bit, and it's mentioned that it's been 1 year and 8 months since they broke out of Gracefield. Although Nate is a little bit off for me, because we see him with a more like pointed face, and like his nose really stands out. I mean, when I read this chapter, I felt like, wow, his nose really is standing out here. And compare Nate to when he left Gracefield House to how he is now. It's sort of like, it's a really stark contrast, and maybe it's just the angle that he's being positioned in, but it does seem like there's a really major stark contrast to what Nate is now compared to where he was when he escaped Gracefield House. So anyway, they go on to say that they've survived all this time outside of Gracefield House, and they say that they've expanded their garden a lot and done everything they can to stay up inside this shelter most of the time. And we see that they've actually really done this. They've actually really come together as a group and as a family, as a close tight-knit community, and really expanded this shelter and made it sort of like a home, a permanent home for them that they can monitor outside, and they can go on these hunts and they can find clues and information, so that when they eventually do leave this shelter, they have everything they know of where they need to go and what they need to do. And it's also thanks to these precautions that the Ratari clan hasn't found them so far, so all is good, which makes sense in this regard, because even though I feel like Peter is really intelligent, I don't feel like he can match the intelligence of all these kids that are as intelligent as Emma, Ray, Hugo and Lucas. I feel like they've actually all come together to sort of like outthink him, and it's like two, and it's like so many heads against one, and that's and although it's really quite interesting how he hasn't been able to find them, like with all the resources that he has, or maybe he's not even bothering. Maybe that's the thing, like he's not even bothering, he's actually waiting for them to expose themselves, and he's waiting for them to come out of hiding so that he can actually capture them all at once. Like he's not actually looking for them, he's waiting for them to pop out themselves, because I feel like that's going to happen at some point in the next few chapters. Like they're going to get out of the shelter and they're going to actually go into certain danger zones, and Peter's going to find out, and he's going to like ambush them there and then. Which, if he does, that's a really smart thing to do. He's actually waiting for his enemy to actually make their move, as opposed to him making his move continuously. But anyway, they do mention that even though Peter and the Rattari clan haven't been able to find them, the phone hasn't rung in all this time, and they haven't heard anything from their contacts. But the search for the Seven Wolves is progressing as well as ever, which I can believe in. And this is what I was saying about the pacing. I feel like if it was like this was a search for the Seven Wolves arc, and it didn't amount, and they didn't find any clues or anything, I feel like the writer would have just been pushed into a corner, and people would have complained like, oh, what was the point of this arc? If they didn't find anything, there was no point to it. Which I feel like he thought like, okay, I'm going to skip over this and do it in flashbacks to show like they didn't find anything, and we're getting to the real meat of when they actually do find stuff, so that we can actually focus on all our time and energy on that, rather than things that are actually pointless. Which again, it's what I really love about this series, like they're actually pinpointing the points that actually do matter, rather than focusing on the things that don't matter in the end. And I feel like people say that the Goldie Pond arc didn't matter. That no, I feel it did matter, because it did introduce why I consider like the main antagonist of the rest of the series. Like Peter's going to be the main antagonist that they're going to have to eventually fight and overcome in order to bring peace to this world, and eventually make the promise to the Demon King, like make a new promise to the Demon King. And like I said, I feel like the Goldie Pond arc has had some relevance in this chapter, because they have mentioned it and it has been relevant, and it has stated that the Lord disappeared, which again goes back to what happened with Lewis, how we saw his body, but then we saw that it disappeared. I feel like that's the same with Bion. Like his body has just completely disappeared, and we don't know what's happened to him before Goldie Pond was officially destroyed. Like as we saw with Lewis, we only saw like the pile of blood, but we didn't see his body. Even though we saw Bayon's body, I feel like it disappeared in the same manner, which I feel like this is why they mentioned that it disappeared, rather than it's been over a year since Bayon was killed. I feel like that's what they're going with, like Bayon disappeared along with the same as Lewis, and I feel like they're going to pop up eventually at one point again in the series. Maybe towards the end of the series there's going to be a rematch between Emma and Lewis to find out who is more superior, and we're going to find out if Lewis can actually win in this regard, which we know he's not going to. But I feel like we haven't seen the last of Lewis, and I feel like we are going to see Bayon at some point as well, or we're going to see a relative or associate of Bayon that has ties to his house. So anyway, after having a group arrive back at the shelter from that place that I cannot pronounce, that begins with C, they focus all their efforts on finding out where the golden water is, and the temple that Emma saw in her vision. And Ray starts to think of where. I remember William Minerva mentioning something about this, and he asked the kids to find the first bookcase, second shelf from the top, fifth and seventh book from the left, and on the fourth shelf, the 10th volume, second bookcase, topmost shelf, the books 9 and 15, and also the fourth bookcase, third shelf. And all kids run off to actually find these books after hearing him, and we see some of the kids that are from Grand Valley saying these Gracefield kids are crazy, and we see Anna going, well, that's Ray for you. And yeah, she's not wrong. Ray is pretty crazy to actually remember all of this, and to remember just from certain aspects that he probably had a difficult time actually remembering, but he eventually was able to remember it. So yeah, these kids are pretty crazy, but then again, they're going up against a world full of demons and hoping that they can get out of this. So yeah, I feel that is pretty crazy, but you got to give commend for them for actually going through with this, when I feel like lots of kids or lots of adults have just given up at this point. So after the kids find all the books, we see Ray going, we'll compare the local geography and culture with the scenery and architecture you saw in the vision. We should be able to narrow it down significantly. And then we see Emma going, don't forget the golden waters! And then we have Limey and Toma and everyone cheering, let's go for it! Which again shows just the enthusiasm of them wanting to move on with this and find the Demon King and create a new promise. But also, I really love it here when Ray goes on about the geography, because as we all know, geography is everything! Oh, thank God. Thank God. I really thought that I was going to get flagged at that point for doing a trademark catchphrase of Tekken. But please, people, don't tell him, otherwise he might send Lewis after me, and I really don't want that. Alright, so they spend 2 weeks planning out their trip to go and find out more about the Golden Waters and find out where they can actually find the temple and the vision that Emma saw. And they go to the west side first. Oh, is it the west side? The east side first, sorry. The east side first, but it takes them 7 months. And then they come back and they found nothing. And Emma says, okay, we're going to go and check out the west side at this point. Which again shows just what I've been saying throughout this review, that if they had spent about 50, 60, 70 chapters on just them travelling to this east side, I'm finding nothing, then it would have been pretty pointless, and the fandom probably would have complained at that point. So the author thought, okay, we'll just show in a flashback in one or two panels that they went, it took them 7 months, they came back, there was nothing, and that's it, and we can move on to the real meat of this series and finally find out what the whole deal is with this whole world, and if there's anything that can be done to change anything about this established world. So anyway, as they're talking about going to the west side, we see them discussing it and saying, in the Western Lands there were 7 possible candidates for the Golden Waters and 3 for the temple. However, the latter was right in the middle of a demon village, which, oh, I'm getting really pumped up for this, because they're going to go right into established enemy territory, and it's going to be really cool. There's going to be like a lot of sneaking around, and there is, as we're going to see coming up, which I just find really creative. Like, they're actually just sneaking in disguised, and it's like really tense and really suspenseful, and that's what I've loved about the series, how it can have different genres bouncing around, and it's not just limited to one genre, the one genre that is created, and it's like really suspenseful at this moment in time, that they actually have to go into the demon territory. They have to go right into the heart of demons, where one false slip and they could all be in trouble. But it's really exciting for us as a reader to see them, just how they're actually going to do this and how they're actually going to get in, find this information and escape. So anyway, we got a 4-page spread which shows this group of demons like walking around that marketplace like we saw at the beginning of the chapter, and obviously we have a group at the bottom of the page that are in a group of 6, which we obviously know are Emma's group, because it's really out there, focused on that they're in disguise as demons, and they're going through this village just making cautious, and I feel like that's I feel like we really need to see more of what their reaction to thinking. I feel like that's what's lacking from this chapter, that we're not actually seeing them thinking about seeing like just these human body parts just listed in this marketplace, in these jars. I feel like that's going to have some really psychological disturbing aspects for them later down the line, if they actually do snap and they actually just when they're in disguise just throw their cloaks off and feel like, how dare you do this to us, and then if that happens, all hell is gonna break loose. So anyway, as the demons that we obviously know is Emma's group, past the 2 kids that we saw, the 2 demon kids that we saw at the beginning of the chapter, we see them getting meat and being like, every day it's just more third-rate stuff. The likes of us will never even see it, let alone taste it, of human meat from the premier plantations, which again just shows how the societal structure of the demon world actually works, how these kids want to taste the human meat, the premier goods, like they want to taste Emma's meat or Ray's meat or Norman's meat, but they can't afford it, so they're living off the scraps of like kids like Connie or some of the other kids that were actually taken away. Like I feel like Gillian's sister, I feel like she might have been one that was like a second-rate, second-hand human meat. I don't think that was ever established, but I feel like it'll be something like that, and it just shows again, like I said, the structure of how the demon will work. It's like there's going to be some meats that you can eat, but it's like not going to be very tasty, but then you want the really high meats, but you have to be like a lord or something like that, like Lord Bayon or Archduke Louis. You have to be someone like that in order to get your hands on that premier meat, and these kids are just like living off the scraps. It's like how some people want to eat something like a really good lobster or really delicious steak, but then you have to eat something like a fast food McDonald's burger. It's sort of the similar to that. Like, it tastes all right, but it's not the same as tasting like a really fancy meal. And I feel like this is the same with human meats, how the demons grade them based on how intelligent they are and how fleshy and juicy they can actually be. Anyway, as the little demon notices something off about Emma's group, like he actually sees their feet, he goes, "Brother, look! Yeah, weird feet, but then they turn around and the group is obviously gone, and we see them just racing out of the city at an alarming rate to get away and not cause any much of a distraction, which again just shows how much careful they have to be in this situation, because they're going right into demon territory and right into the heart of the enemy, and one slip up and they could all be screwed. But I feel like that was just like a really tense moment, like, will they actually be caught or will they actually get out in time? So anyway, after they get out of the demon city, we see them remove the masks, and not really much has changed about the characters in terms of their designs. We see that Emma's face has gone a little bit wider and a little bit more narrow, and her hair's grown out a little bit, and we see Ray's face has gone a little bit more pointier. Violet, I don't think has changed much, and neither has Gilda, but the ones that really stand out to me are Sak and Don, as we see that their faces are looking a little bit more like identical in this regard, and both of them are black, and both of them have the same coloured hair. Like, I'm not saying that these two are related, but from the way I've been seeing them and the way that I've been studying the panels that they've actually been in ever since like this chapter's been released, and looking back on all the panels with these two characters, I feel like there is a connection there. It's so subtle, but I feel like it's actually there. Like, they do have some facial similarities. Now, I'm not saying they're actually related, but if they are, it wouldn't surprise me, because I've just noticed how similar they actually look. Or maybe it's just an artistic design on the writer and the artist's choice, but I feel like these two stick out the most opposed to all the others, because all the others, they don't look any different, they just look more aged and wiser in that regard. But anyway, as Dawn is being chastised by Gilda for nearly giving away their cover, we see that Emma's going, the masks that they wore were great, and so were the disguises, and they'll have to give kudos to Nigel's team. And Ray goes on to say, what's more, the materials they had were very limited. The Grand Valley crew is amazing. While putting on a show for the demon hunters, they spent all these years researching them. Which shows just how well these two groups are working together, even though they haven't been together as long as some other groups, like the Gracefield kids were together practically all their lives, and so were the Grand Valley kids. So I feel like putting these groups together just shows the cooperation that they have as a community at this point, and how much they can trust each other, and how well it's been established, the friendships that they've built over these past 2 years, which I feel is going to come into play if a lot of these kids actually do die in this arc. I feel like Emma's going to snap, because she's going to remember all the times that they had together. Even though we haven't seen it, we know just how valuable these friendships mean to Emma, and if they're broken, then she is going to snap, and she's going to snap hard. Also, one thing I forgot to mention is that those masks were handmade as well. And I feel like those costumes were tailor-made as well, which shows just how skilled they are. Some of the Grand Valley kids are in those regards, and I feel like that's going to be a very important plot point, that they're going to have to make more of these if they want every one of these kids to escape from this world, and they probably will have to go through that village again and see if they can actually get to the golden water and the temple. But I feel like it's going to be very difficult, and I feel like some kids are actually going to blow their cover and going to have to be sacrificed to the demons if they want the others to escape, and I feel like that's really going to be played into a plot point as we go through further along in these chapters. Anyway, as they return back to the shelter, everybody greets them and they ask, is everybody doing okay? All is good. And we see Oliver saying, we're all doing well, no issues at all, our whole family. And we see Emma going through all the names of all the family, and just how much it's made her, happy. And again, like I've just said, if any one of this family, because they're treating each other as family now, like, this is Emma's family, like, she needs to protect this. Like, I feel like all the humans that are under threat from these demons, she classifies them as family, because she's in the same position as them, and she wants them to get out just as much as she wants to get out, but she's not going to leave anybody behind, because that wouldn't be fair to them, and that would make her hypocritical in a regard. Like, she's just going to save her skin, and it's not going to make her feel right about herself. And I feel like this is most of the family that she's going to have throughout the rest of the series, but I feel like some of them are going to die. And if any one of this particular family that she's gone through hell and back with, if they die, then, like I said, she's going to snap. It's gonna happen, guys. I'm preparing for it. We're all preparing for it. So we're preparing for Berserk Emma, because that is going to come. Because as we've seen in panels through various chapters, she's had that really sinister, dark look about her, that she is going to fall to the dark side hard if something bad ever happens to these kids. So anyway, as Emma's going through all the names, we see that we see all the kids and we see all of their designs, and like I said, not much has changed about the designs of the characters, which I feel like is appropriate, because I don't feel like there really should be as much change as we necessarily should expect, because they're all still human. So they've only just grown up a little bit, grown up and aged up a bit, as we can see in their faces and other aspects of them. But anyway, one particular one that I want to talk about is Sandy, because somebody said that the Goldie Pond arc was like one side, like all the demons died and it was like none of the kids died, but there were some very lasting injuries, and Sandy is the one that's pretty much part of that. I feel like he's lost that eye, because he has the eye patch on. I feel like that eye is never going to come back. So for that person who was complaining about there was no lasting consequences, that's a pretty lasting injury that's going to have to affect him for the rest of his life. So as you go ask them, have there been anything? Have you found anything? We see Emma smiling, and we see they're going, yeah, we found the golden waters and the temple, and that's where the chapter ends. So anyway, like I said, really good chapter. This is a really very interesting and very informative chapter. I have no problems with it. We got the time skip, which has happened at the perfect point. We've had the big finale of the Goldie Pond, and then we had all the kids gathering at the shelter, and then we found out what the main drive is to find the Demon King and make a new promise. But we also have other aspects of the series that we need to cover, and also I found that we have to really find out more about the Ratari clan and who Grandma actually is. I feel like those two are like going to be the aside from this Demon King, the big bosses of this series, which I'm really looking forward to. And I'm really looking forward to find out if they actually have to go back to this village, if they have to actually get into that village again, undercover, under disguises of these demon disguises, to actually find a certain area of this village to get to the golden waters and to the temple. And I'm really interested to find out what this temple actually is, if it's actually going to lead them to this realm of the Demon King, or it's actually going to lead them to somewhere else. But anyway, guys, what did you think? I know a lot of people had issues with the pacing, but I feel like after we've gone past all of this issue of like, okay, we could have spent a year and a half on the series, and most of it didn't amount to anything, or we could have just jumped forward to the points that actually mattered, which is what we've done, and just get into the real meat of it. I feel like that was the right decision to do, because even though I love this series, if that had gone down the road, I would have felt like it was really boring. They were just wandering for nearly a year and a half in this desert, and it just amounted to nothing in the end. But that's just my opinion. I want to know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, share, all that jazz, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.